What would happen if we created a task without a warehouse? First question we have to ask ourselves is that is it possible to create a task without a warehouse? And the answer to that question is after September 2021, it has been possible to create a task without a warehouse. And what would happen is that the task would run as per the schedule provided, and Snowflake would provide the compute resources needed for the task. We might think as to why Snowflake introduced serverless tasks. And the reason for that is because Snowflake is trying to make the platform easier to run. And by taking away the work and responsibility of assigning a warehouse, it is reducing the amount of time the developer needs to spend. When you have to assign a warehouse, you need to do analysis on what is the right sizing for that task. And if we use serverless, that work is automatically done by Snowflake and it will pick a compute resource that is appropriate to the task at hand. There is an option to provide an initial warehouse size when creating serverless tasks. If you do this, what will happen is that Snowflake will use the size you have provided in the first couple of executions. After the first couple of executions, Snowflake gets an idea based on the history of the task execution, approximately what kind of compute resource is going to be needed. And depending on that, it will auto adjust the warehouse size needed for that task. In the event that you as a developer don't provide the initial warehouse size, the parameter is defaulted to a medium warehouse size. Let us now jump into a demo to see how we can create serverless tasks and observe if creating a task serverlessly still results in tasks getting executed. We are going to start off by creating the database called Cyrus if it does not already exist. Since it already exists, we are going to use the database. Similarly, for the schema QA, we will create it if it does not exist. Now we'll use the schema because it already exists. Before we begin, let's take a look at what tasks we currently have in the schema. We have one task called task_insert. As the next step, we are going to create a new task called task create table, in which we are going to create a table customer from Snowflake sample data. As you can see in this task definition, I've commented out the warehouse. There is a schedule available and we also have an initial warehouse size which I have commented out. As we already discussed, the initial warehouse size is only for the initial execution, after which Snowflake will ignore it. And the reason it ignores it is because it has history data to determine what the right sizing is for this task. So let's go ahead and create this task. Now that the task is successfully created, let's go and review the task. This is the task create table, which we just created. And as you can see, the warehouse is null and it is in suspended state. The definition that we used for creation is also available here. Let's take a look at the tables that are existing now in the schema before we enable the task. As you can see, currently there are no tables in the schema. Now let's go ahead and enable the task so that the table is created. Now we might have to wait for a minute or so that we can actually see the task in action. So I'm going to pause the video so that you don't have to watch me waiting. So a few minutes have passed and I'm hoping that the task has executed and the customer table has been created. I'm going to run the show tables command, and as you can see, the table customer has been created. I'm going to go and run this monitoring command from task history to see if there is information on execution of the task. As you can see, the task has executed successfully, and this is in spite of the fact that we did not provide the warehouse name inside the create task statement. So what can we conclude from this? What we can conclude is that tasks today do not require a warehouse to be set, and we can provide a warehouse if we want to. However, if we don't, Snowflake will automatically manage the compute for the task. It will initially start off by providing a medium-sized warehouse, and then depending on the execution information that it generates, it is then going to adjust it to the right place. With that, we conclude this question. If you have the time, please join me in the next question.